Just like what happened to the Roman Empire, Europe is going to destroy Russia collectively with Arab countries, and then eventually they will go after either China or they will go after Israel. And right now, the Arab countries collectively with the Europeans, with African countries, all the African countries pressured to vote for the destruction of Russia at the UN, while also funding the war. And what I think is happening is that, remember, Arab countries, their collective beliefs, because remember, whatever you eat drives your health. What you think also, what would eventually you think happen after you die, your collective goal of what you think is going to happen after you die, paradise, hell, the mission of what the supposedly your religious belief drives you to do mentally, collectively. The Arab world, they went after Roman empires. Remember, if you study the Roman empires, they divide them just like they divided the Western society right now. The Europe is fighting Russia, eventually China, and also they fighting among each other. Africa, the Christian anyway, they fighting each other. They will eventually destroy the Christians, which you see all over Africa. The Christian is being wiped out in most of the African countries today. So what's going to happen? What I think is going to happen is Europe is being used as a meat grinder against Russia, against eventually against China, against every Christian countries, every countries that are not aligned with Arab countries. At the same time, the Arab have taken control of European resources, the European continent. More than 35 to 40% of European countries is in control of the Arabs. They basically flood the European countries with the Muslims, either from Arab countries, which is they have over 100 to 150 million Arab Muslims in European countries. Look at the places like United Kingdom, UK's, Switzerland, even Germany's. They systematically have taken over the European country without even having to fight any war, which is very smart. Moving your own people, collectively taking over small areas by electing your own people into power, and then dividing their society, European society, into the people that don't support the immigrations. They will basically, the Muslim Arab country will basically make them as an enemy of society. They will call them, you know what they call them. And then eventually, the goal is, once they able to collectively, they're going to take over Europe. The Arab countries, 100%, will be in control of the European countries. And then eventually, they will use the European populations as a meat grinder to start a war with China and any other countries in Latin America and South America. And eventually, they will either go, I think after they're done with Russia, they may use even the Russians, the collective society, the leftist politicians, the leftist idea, the people that are on the side of the leftist ideas. They will use them to fight Russia. To fight China. Once the China is defeated, then half of the Christian society, the Christian world is done. They're taking over Europe, taking over China, and then that's it. Africa is nothing. Africa is already being bought and sold by the Arabs like a commodity throughout the history. Remember, Europe have started to provide some financial help to African countries. Arabs does not provide anything other than building schools to brainwash the Africans to adapt to the Arab cultures, saying, hey, our culture is a way of life. If you don't adapt the Arab culture, the Arab religion, or the Arab ideas of how to live your life, you are lower than animals. They convince the African society, African populations, African government, and drive them against each other. Look at driving them against each other to wipe each other off, to kill each other, to basically use the black Africans against each other as a meat grinder, as a fire. They're burning the African people against each other. Look at what's happening in Nigeria. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Africans killing Africans over the books that is written by the Arabs. The Arab convinced the black people. The Arabs, they wrote the books. This is the books that we received from God. If you don't follow this book, you're not human beings. You are against God. And if African people don't have, Africa have their own religion, Africa have their own cultures, Africa have their own political ideas, yet the Africa is convinced to the point where they identified themselves. The African identified themselves as Arabs. Hey, I'm Arabs. And they dress like Arabs. They eat the food like Arabs. They go to pray like Arabs. They build the prayer houses like Arabs. They forget their own cultures, their own identity, and replace it with Arabs. An example, perfect example of this is Yemen. Look at Yemen. Black people calling themselves Arabs. Or look at the Sudanese. Black call themselves Arabs and killing every other black people, their mothers and sisters and daughters of their own society who do not adapt to the Arab cultures. Same thing in China. If you go and look at these Uyghurs, the Muslims in China, they recruit each other, they carry out attacks on their own brothers, and their own Chinese brothers, and their own Chinese sisters, and their own Chinese neighbors. They share the same identity as the Chinese, from the same country, from the same language, the same culture. But the Chinese, who are convinced by these Arabs that your society, the China society, is garbage, they are against God because they don't follow our books, our society, the books that we wrote, the message that we received from God by the Arab guy who was sleeping overnight. The message in the dreams, the angel come to him and say, hey, I have a message for you from God. This is what the message is. And he tell that to the people who wrote it down in the books. From a dream. Every one of us dreams every day. Yet none of us were write down that story in dreams and force upon other people and kill everybody, and everybody who don't follow that dreams of our society, and convince others, and then repeat this 5 times a day, and those who do not were erased out of society. And if you do this, you will enjoy paradise. You will enjoy all the good things in life, and also forget about life. This life is temporary. You're gonna get more of everlasting life after you die. And if you become a soldier of God, eradicate those who are enemies of God. They actually say, if you don't believe this, the message from our side, the Arabs, if you don't believe our Arab messages, that you are enemies of God and your life is worth less than a dog, and our entire mission is to destroy you. And they brainwash these people. Every society, you see people from Latin America, from China, from Africa, from all over the world, carrying out attacks. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, God's great, and forgetting their own society, their own country, their own national pride, and collectively surrendering to this. This is exactly how this is created, where the Arabs poison society all over the world and turning people against their own country, their own neighbors, their own city, their own town, and they are destroying each other for these ideas. There are it's worse than any disease that you can imagine. And so that's why I think that this war, you can see it in the surface, all the deniability of any Arabs' connection to the Russian war. You see them when they are voting in the UN. All the Arab countries, they vote for the destruction, for the war on Russia, every time, all the time. And they also pressure in every other countries. They will threaten them, look, if you don't vote for the destruction of Russia, we're going to tell the Muslim population in your country to uprise and destroy you, to overthrow you from the power, to carry out terrorist attacks, to destroy your society. They using this over every country as a hostage. Or we're gonna cut off the funding, little money they give, or we're gonna ask the European countries to cut the money from your country if you don't vote the way we want you to vote. Or they will threaten the European country also with oil prices. Or they will say, we're going to turn your neighbors, your other country, European neighbors against you. All of this, the Europeans that existed today, they're not the same Europeans that fought World War I and II. They have forfeit their right to their own country. And they're doing the same thing to China. They're doing the same thing to Russia. They will eventually do the same thing to every other country. I would recommend to say that if you are Russians, if you're Chinese, or any other country, you join collectively to stand against this virus.